Hi everyone, so you may have seen in the press recently some advice about exercise, isometric exercise specifically. It was talking about how it reduces your blood pressure, and every week we see various different articles coming out explaining what different types of exercise do what. Now if you've seen any of the osteopaths or Bridget, our sports therapist, here at Physical Balance, you would almost certainly be given some exercises. So I've grabbed Bridget today to have a chat about what types of exercises do what and why we might prescribe specific exercises. So we're going to take you guys through the types of exercise. So let's start off with isometric. So isometric is an exercise where you are in a static position. So a plank is a classic exercise. Tell us about what plank is. Isometric.
An isometric obviously is a constant contraction. Obviously some people will be able to hold for a lot longer than others. So you might start off at maybe only 5 seconds, 10 second hold, and you might be able to go up towards 30 seconds. So you might have a goal of about 30. So it increases your stamina and your stability.
So when we're prescribing these exercises, we're looking specifically for joints that might need a bit of extra stability, or somebody who needs to build up that ability to repetitively load a joint.
Yeah, and it could even be as simple as today I had someone standing, just purely standing as an isometric hold for the whole body. So, or a plank, for example, a lot of core conditioning. It could just be as simple as a bicep, contracting if you've got a bicep strain. So any muscle group can be used, and just it's that contraction for a few seconds or longer.
And then talking about contraction, we then got different types of contraction. So there's concentric and eccentric. Concentric means making a muscle shorter. So if I use my bicep as an example here, that's a concentric contraction, and an eccentric contraction would be me lengthening it. Now that does two different, slightly different things, doesn't it? So when we're prescribing these exercises, again, we might ask you to lengthen the muscle, we might ask you to shorten. A concentric, for example, builds muscle mass. So this is where you see people in the gym concentrically working their muscles, they build bulk. An eccentric is something that you might have been prescribed much more commonly within clinic. I certainly prescribe eccentric exercises a lot.
Yeah, eccentric's good, I guess, for Achilles, for example. We see a lot of Achilles in the clinic, so Achilles tendinopathies, we tend to use a lot of eccentric loading. So it's basically lengthening under a load. So in
that case you'd step up onto a step and stretch down.
Yeah, so you're stretching down with the Achilles and the calf, but you're obviously loading with body weight or additional load as well if you're adding weights or anything.
So eccentric is brilliant for tendon injuries, tennis elbow, Achilles, as you just said. So again, you might have been prescribed those exercises. We'll move on. So proprioception exercises, or otherwise known as balance exercises. Again, this is something I prescribe quite a lot. But essentially standing on one leg, maybe stand on one leg, and when we take it into proprioception, we're talking about eyes closed. So the way I see that is you're building a connection between where your brain thinks you are and where you actually are. So when people damage ligaments, I tend to give an eccentric proprioceptive exercises. Is there any extra that you would give for that?
I do it for any joint injury really, because you think of maybe the balance is the easiest proprioception, but actually you could do proprioception for shoulder, in a plank position, high plank position on a balance board or something. So it's giving feedback to whichever joint you want to strengthen. And also, I suppose what's important I've become more aware of is the cognitive side of it. So
the brain-body connection.
Yeah, and you want to maybe have a cognitive element to the balance as well. So when you're out and about walking on an uneven terrain, you're not going to be thinking about where your foot is being placed. You're going to be looking at the fields, looking at distractions. So if you can use an additional cognitive element to the balance,
so when you were working with football girls back in Chelsea, you would have maybe had them stand on one leg whilst throwing a ball.
We do a lot of throwing ball. They might be volleying the ball, and it's really nice to make it either sport specific or function specific.
Person specific.
When I've had a couple of footballers today, I've done exactly that, given them the football exercises. So it needs to be tailored to what somebody is doing functionally.
So another classic gym style exercise that you'll understand is aerobic exercise, so cardiovascular. Again, I actually don't prescribe this quite so much because functionally from a rehab point of view it's probably less used, but cardiovascular work is important to get the heart rate going and increase blood flow. Is that something again you prescribe lots of?
To be fair, even today, again, another example, somebody that, a couple of months ago struggled coming up the stairs. So they've gone away, they've done my strengthening exercises for another reason, but then they've also been using the bike. And actually today I said, you've done so much better coming up the stairs, you're not out of breath. That's a massive deal for them.
So from an overall
well-being
and health point of view, cardiovascular exercise, aerobic exercise.
Heart and lung, getting them stronger, getting your blood pumping. It's really should be alongside the strengthening as well.
Absolutely. And then finally, the classic stretch. We all give stretches. You'll all do stretches at home, and that plays a really important role. They're sort of off the cuff stretches that perhaps we say, oh, give your knee a hug towards your opposite shoulder, but they play a really important role in the rehab process.
Yeah, I use stretches a lot. So in the sporting population, I guess I use a lot of dynamic stretches. So on the movement stretching, so getting the movement through the joint and the muscle tissue whilst you're moving, and then also the static stretches people can do at home where you're holding for a certain length of time to allow the muscle to relax. Which then gives the joint more movement and you're freer to move correctly. So yeah, I use them quite a lot.
So you can see why there's lots of evidence that comes out in the press about various different exercises, because there's a whole plethora of different exercises, and there's specific reasons why we give these. So it might be isometric for stability, concentric for muscle mass, eccentric for stability and strength, proprioception for balance and the cognitive, how your brain body works together, aerobic for pure health and fitness, and stretching to just make you more flexible, quite frankly. Now we give specific, it's like building a recipe, if you like, building a recipe when you're cooking, you're using specific things to do specific jobs. So when we give exercises to you in clinic, it's not just randomly selected, it's selected based tailored to your needs. If you've got any questions, or if you're thinking, I'm not sure about the balance of exercises I'm doing, then let's have a chat. Physical Balance, www.physicalbalance.com, have a look. And we look forward to seeing you and happy to help. Yeah, take care.